Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Dan. So right, I'm going to be doing yet another recap kind of a thing here, folks, of course, because might as well, I reckon. Because as mentioned before, I'm just going to use this as a way to put a bit up to my review for a Blu-ray version of the show, which I'll get to later. I'll just use that as a separate thing, of course. In the meantime, I just want to go down these episodes. They're not that many, really. So, yeah, in episode 5. You reap what you well, if I'm pronouncing that right. So there you go. So yeah, I'm more than halfway there already. Well, almost halfway. Whatever. It's getting there. Is what I'm getting. Whatever. Point being, I'm going to review every single episode. Those are like what? It's really short though. Because typically, TV shows may have like what, maybe 24, 30, or even 50 episodes per season. I guess some around there. So okay, there was that. I guess this is definitely one of the shortest shows I've reviewed, even though I don't review shows that often. Not really. Anyway, of course, as always, let's just talk about the plot, shall we? So things get rather complicated in the family department when it comes to this. Well, yes, it still has the murder mystery, monster, supernatural element here, of course, and the slice of life school thing, of course. But it's more focusing on the family, Wednesday's family specifically, I guess, for the most part, because of course, Wednesday here again has to use her detective skills, of course. And yes, even though her life is already chaotic as it is, because no one really is trusting her all that much, and prejudiced to some extent, I'll give it that. Maybe because of that, because she's too far out there in the deep end, I guess, for some people. To in the a sense of macabre, I guess. In the meantime, also, there's a oh yeah, it's even her family. One of the other characters, of course, we could talk about her family. She does not want to be like a mother, of course. Bianca, if I'm pronouncing out her name right, she you know see a part of her family in some ways, her mother daughter uh situation, and let's just say it's not exactly pleasant either. Which yes does help the character to be a bit more three dimensional rather than just being a generic or up the mill school bully kind of a thing. Of course, that's how to get to Wednesday. Speaking of which, her roommate, Blondie over here. I know that's not her name, but just saying. Yes, same thing with her. She's not really getting along with her family, specifically her mother. Again, there's a common theme here because she comes to comfort therapy and whatnot. It just does sound rather dark when you think about it. So there you go. Because apparently she's not acting the way she should be. She's not acting the way she wants. Yeah, her mother specifically, I guess, wants her to be, of course. And she has to deal with that stress because she doesn't like it for one, and she feels like she's been ordered around because she's not feeling like she's not being her authentic self. She's not being her real self. She feels like she's being forced to be a certain way. So okay, so there's that, I reckon. Anyway, so there's that, of course. So there's all that going on. Yeah, if this sounds kind of like a drama, that's because it kind of is. You just gonna say if you think about it. So yeah, I guess this time around, when it comes to the school events, that would be put to notion and flesh out the workings of, I guess, the school in some ways. But this time around, it's going to focus on Wednesday. She gets a taste of her first family weekend, so to speak, when the proud parents of the outcast come to the school to see their children doing their thing, of course. And yes, obviously, this would be a good, perfect opportunity to pretty much solve the mystery of Gomez's murder accusation, the death of a normie who pretty much caused the nitrates to dismember the club thing I mentioned in one of my previous videos, and the whole thing with that, the of course they're already on Thursday goal, and there's the whole thing with the mayor, of course, how the mayor is acting some way because corruption or whatnot. So that comes into play in a major part of the story, of course. So in terms of people being a mayor, yes, obviously you expect mayors, people of high authority, to pretty much act responsibility. I mean, with a professional responsibility and whatnot, you expect them to basically do what they're supposed to do, but in a proper way, obviously. Which of course people just are going to assume that, sure. And this there's also moments where it also shows how Wednesday is not the only student at the school who has trouble with their family. Like there's two characters I just mentioned a moment ago who also must suffer from the visit of the mothers. So yes, like it's not exactly a happy reunion of the parents. I mean, one may think that it would be. You think that this kind of thing would be a good way, like everybody, yay, mommy and daddy's coming, hip hip hooray. I mean, you would assume that everything would be all jolly and whatnot because these parents are why you came to exist in the first place. So you'd be thinking it'd be a great old time, but unfortunately, that's not the case. Yes, each individual mother has something to they have to bear with, whatever that may be. And of course, Bianca has to deal with her mother because she finds her mother to be, I guess, questionable when it comes to her morality. That's kind of her stick with her mother, I guess, obviously. So there was that. There's like quite a few things going on with just that alone. So, of course, aside from the mother, Wednesday's mother has to deal with the fact that her husband is being accused of a murder and whatnot, which yes, this does take place a good bulk of the show, of course. That's what he's mostly focused on for the grand scheme of things. That's like the most coherent thing. As for everything else, it's kind of like a side thing to some extent. But it does help to give, I guess, some fresh air, so to speak. It does make it seem like these characters actually have lives aside from attending school events, of course. Which I understand that you have to have these characters attend school events, of course, that's probably the program at the school. But that's fine. I'm not complaining about that. That's what students do anyway. When it comes to this educational institution, of course, that's perfectly fine, obviously. Anyway, but yes, all the while, there was the whole cop officer individual. He's in this, the police officer from the previous episodes. You'll see that he's definitely here again, of course. You have the whole murder thing, of course. Yeah, the whole normie that was killed off, of course. He gets killed off. We do see a flashback as this transaction occurred. This incident occurs, of course, as it's told in flashback of what this moment had occurred, of course, and how a lot of people believe that he's the murderer and whatnot. I mean, okay, ever since the first episode, you can obviously tell that a lot of people of this townsfolk already didn't like the Adams family. The Adams family were frowned upon anyway. And I guess this does explain a bit of it, of course. I mean, I guess there's is prejudice in some ways because a lot of people assume like EU goth people are weird. You know, people are. I mean, that's not much of a stretch really because when you think about it, a lot of people in real life do have a grudge against goth people anyway. When you think about it, so having that be kind of fair to some extent is not that much of a stretch. Not really. I mean, granted, it's more or less that a lot of people think the Adams family is too weird anyway. And this is not that far off from the other iterations of the Adams family. That was kind of their stick in a way when it comes. It was since day it was since day one. A lot of people like the outside world always viewed the Adams family to be strange. Anyway, that was like in every movie when you think about it. That was like in every TV show and whatnot. So having it here is not that much of a stretch. A lot of people just assume that the Adams family is weird, mostly because well, the Adams family they don't conform. Yeah, they don't conform what is typical of society and one. They just want to do their own thing. And again, this isn't that much of a stretch. Really, how people react. It's just kind of what's going on anyway in the other adaptations of these characters. So this is not that much different. Not really. Anyway, but there's that, of course. When it comes to the story, the police officer eventually does arrest the the husband character once he's Anna's father, that does happen, of course, eventually. He does get arrested, of course, and gets questioned and whatnot. And yeah, this is pretty embarrassing because this happens right in school and whatnot. This happens really, it's so embarrassing. I mean, like, oh boy, yeah, talk about having a moment here. How a police officer arresting your own dad, where all your classmates can see you and whatnot. I mean, it doesn't always have to be them, but just literally anybody. And a lot of people already have a grudge against you anyway and your family. So this doesn't exactly help. Not really. So if anything, it just goes along with their own assumptions anyway. Like, why else are they doing? It must be weird. How dare they be weird? Of course. So there's that going on with these characters. And okay, all the while the law enforcement chief police officer individual, yeah, he doesn't seem to have like any respect for his son. Yeah, that's pretty much be like a common thing throughout the entire show where his son does go to school, of course. His son does go to the school, obviously, of course. And he spoke to Wednesday quite a few times, even up to this point in this episode, obviously. So there was that. But the officer doesn't really take care of his son, not really at all, of course, unfortunately. So there's a bit going on with these two, the son and the father. The police officer and his father, I mean, don't I guess they don't like each other. The father character, the cop guy, I mean, does seem to be poorly emotionally distant in some ways because he seems to be really, really focused on his job, which in some ways doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, really, of course. But he seems to be more focused on this more than taking care of his kid, really, because he's not really emotionally there. I mean, sure, the cop individual may give him like a roof, may give him food, and all that, but and all that, just the bare basics to take care of your kids, sure, but he doesn't really give much else. The emotional support is pretty much non-existent. I'm getting there, folks. And yes, they have argued before. Anyway, I'm kind of sidetracking here. I know I'm kind of sidetracking here to some extent, but this is how it is, unfortunately, with these characters. And the sad thing is that a lot of in real life, yes, a lot of fathers are just like this. So again, there's not seem much of a stretch. I mean, yes, it does help to make the show more believable because this kind of thing does happen in real life, unfortunately, to various extents, of course. Anyway, this is definitely is a thing, folks. This is definitely is a thing, obviously. So anyway, he ends up arresting Wednesday's father. Of course, again, that's really embarrassing. Of course, it's not something you would want to happen, obviously. But the thing is that you can obviously tell Wednesday really has already close relations with her father. They're really, really, really close, and she does admit that thanks to him, she was able to get really independent and all that jazz. So like a lot of she was like listing stuff off, a lot of great stuff about him, of course. And this happened when he was in jail, of course, and she just visited him for a good while. And he was pretty much trying to be, I guess, be inspirational. I guess, so don't give up on all that. Just keep going, and that's definitely how it is, quite obviously. So there's that. He was trying to make sure that she does not, I guess, give into pressure. I guess there's a lot of things that she pretty much was impressed by when she was younger, and that because of him, thanks to him in a lot of ways. So there was that. That's definitely a good thing. I guess that's a positive trait, of course. But the thing is that here's kind of the thing, though. This was more or less it's just an accusation, as I was saying earlier. As it turned out, he didn't really do it. Yeah, there was the whole thing of murder of self defense, or what if he killed somebody, or the wife killed somebody out of self defense. Well, you can play that angle in a courtroom, of course. Whether he killed her or she killed some individual out of self defense, you could play that, sure. But the thing is that a lot of people are already biased towards the Adams family anyway. But the thing is that this kind of goes into, I guess, my complaint in some ways that I do have a complaint about this setup here because it feels contrived, very contrived. I mean, I get that there might be some corruption in the system and whatnot, and that's how he lands in jail. Okay, I can accept that for the sake of the storytelling. But did somebody really have to die to do that? Did somebody really have to get murdered in order for that to happen? Why can't somebody just create some made up charges and just have the person get arrested? Can you just go on that route? I mean, it feels kind of contrived just to have some drama. And yes, this episode is just mostly focusing on the family. That's it, really, when you think about it. So I don't get it. Again, can you just argue it out of self defense and leave it at that? I mean, technically it was. I mean, you even get like super technical, and it was all self defense. So, but again, this entire thing just feels really contrived. It just felt like it was just drama just for drama's sake, just to have the Adams family involved in the story somehow. Because previously we just saw her parents and anybody else from her family just here and there. It would just bring it out throughout these episodes here and there. And this was like really focused on that. I just came off like the people who wrote the script for these episodes knew that. Oh yeah, we're not showing the family all that much. Just bring them in somehow. So there's that. My issue here is that can we just skip the whole murder thing? Well, I guess murder in self defense. I mean, can we just skip that and just have the maybe corrupted mayor or corrupted officers, or maybe a few officers, uh, don't do some kind of corruption. I won't say the main officer because the main officer, he kind of has like a stick up his ass. He doesn't seem like he would do that, but just have like his coworkers maybe. What I'm getting at is the mayor and some of the other officers were already doing that anyway. So having the accusation and the murder in self-defense just kind of feels like it was just an added piece of the story that did not need to be there at all. Because when you think about it, they would have come up with something anyway. Okay, even their daughter Wednesday felt like there was something up because I mean there was a confession letter that was made, but confession letter was made up anyway. It was a false confession, which the people at the police station and the mayor already knew that. So it's not like they were completely ignorant about that fake confession. So I guess they just forced something out of the father for nothing because they were in on it. So it just came off like they just had something against him anyway, just because he was in Adams. Like the townsfolk, like I was saying earlier, already had something against him anyway because they were viewed as too weird, too odd, too strange anyway. So you would think the whole, I guess, murder plot, even if it was self defense, wasn't needed because they would have done that anyway, which they exactly did do. They came up with something anyway, just to make them look bad. So this seems confusing. So the Wednesday, the daughter, did some kind of like investigation kind of thing, which she was doing to begin with because she was investigating the mysterious murder to begin with. Anyway, the whole monster thing. So there was so that this was kind of like a side piece to some extent, I guess. So as it turned out, yes, the father character was completely innocent the entire time. He didn't really, legally speaking, he didn't do anything wrong at all. So okay, so it just seems like this was not completely necessary. I mean, the whole person getting actually murdered or whatever that was seemed like it wasn't needed there anyway. So it just seems rather even more odd when you think about it. Like again, that it just seemed like that was not needed whatsoever. It was just again, it was come out like drama just for the sake of drama, really. At the end of the day, and I mean, okay, I know it seems like I'm just being too focused on this part when you think about it. But again, I just take some issue with some of the writing. If anything, I take an issue with some of the writing again. So I know I mean, there's more good bits I did like. Don't get me wrong. I'm just really disappointed in this aspect of the story. It just comes off like this show just want to have more focus on the Adams, the family as a whole, and get them into the screen somehow. I guess. But okay, sure, whatever. I don't know. It's just I don't know, maybe just me. I guess I suppose maybe just me. But it just seems like he's just doing it just for the sake of it. That's what I'm saying. It's just some of the writing needs some work at the end of the day. Anyway, so ultimately, I mean, okay, there's that, of course. But ultimately, so I guess let's give some Wednesday some more things to think about. Obviously, it gives Wednesday more things to think about, of course, because she's going through a situation, obviously. So it's not pleasant for her, of course. It's not really pleasant, obviously, whatsoever. But anyway, so there's that, I guess. There's that, of course. And yes, to complicate things even further, there was that whole therapist situation before he was actually arrested. The father, I mean, the the Wednesday character, she brings up the fact that the accusations is it really true or whatnot, and mind you, this brought up was doing their therapy session with the one therapist, which just does become a plot point in here, folks. So And of course, they have like a family therapy kind of a thing for moments. And okay, you might be thinking that's a good thing, but it didn't really end in a pleasant way, of course, at all. It didn't really end in a pleasant way whatsoever, because once they sort of put the pieces of the puzzle together, like something didn't seem right. So I mean, granted, sure, she wanted some questions, obviously. She wanted to ask some stuff, of course, but it's just that things were not making sense. Even though this something had happened quite a while ago, a good while ago actually, it's just something that it didn't quite add up. So of course he's going to want to ask questions. Of course it's going to upset the father. Of course the mother's going to be upset as well. So I mean, it's pretty understandable I guess to some extent. I mean, that's isn't that kind of the point of the therapist? Just solve the problems and whatnot. And so there's that. I mean, just that whole thing going on. Granted, I mean, I'm on Wednesday's side on this because she has every point, every reason to be upset. Of course, because why didn't the parents, of course, mention this before? And the only way that Wednesday found out about this is because of the fact that the one officer that's really uppity towards her finds out about this. I mean, he already knew, but he told her about it, this whole moral thing. So she found out about this kind of thing through a stranger, which just makes it weird, not in a good way, not good weird. So you think this would be something that the family should discuss prior to this, but they kept their lips just tight up about this. So it just makes me wonder how long would they be keeping their mouths shut? For how long? I don't know. It just seems like they would probably keep it in the dark, in the, like skeletons in the closet, so to speak. Another one old phrase goes. So does this mean that they wouldn't keep it and the mouth shut forever and never let her know about it? If this situation never occurred, if she never found out through the one officer, does this mean they would never say anything to her? Which is pretty stupid on their part because that's not parents shouldn't be doing that. This is a very big thing. Oh, it happened decades ago. Blah blah blah. But I mean, it's okay. So what? Seems like something that should have been brought up, but it didn't. For whatever reason, mom and pop over here felt like they didn't have a reason to tell their daughter Wednesday about this. I mean, I do kind of wonder, did Pugsley knew about this? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, if Pugsley knew about this or not. The brother, I guess it does. It kind of doesn't matter, but I'm just wondering. Because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. I'm just wondering. Okay, I know. So what makes this extra weird is that the they placed their daughter in a school in an environment that knew about this. So, if you want to be tight lip about it, why in the hell would you put your own daughter, mind you, want to keep this a secret, your own daughter in a place that a lot of people already knew about it, like the cop individual? So, it's a bit of a head scratcher, like, okay, that's kind of odd. But whatever. I mean, I know it feels like I'm going too much onto this, but it just feel like the writing needs some work, really. And it does, and this does feel like it was just kind of padding things out, really. So it didn't focus too much on the whole monster slaying, killing thing. Not really. Because those like strange creature going out killing folk. Really, yeah, it was not going on that too much. Of course, not really. You should be more focused on this. So it's like the main plot kind of sidetracked because of that. Like the main thing, the main events of the story was kind of just put to a side, so to speak. Like okay, and yeah, just whatever. So it kind of messes the flow of the story in some ways, as far as I'm concerned. Of course, maybe just me, I guess. Maybe just me nitpicking it too much, maybe. But that's just how I took it. Anyway, but that's just how it is, I guess. When it comes to the grand scheme of things, that's how it is, I suppose. And ultimately, I mean, yeah, there's that. That definitely is a thing, folks. And speaking of complaints, when it comes to writing, since I brought him up already, the police officer, at least the main one anyway, that is being brought up here, he kind of feels like he's one dimensional, in some at least to some extent. He's like feels like he's a very stern, seasoned officer who's having issues with his son, and that's about it, really. That's about it. So Yeah, he doesn't feel flushed out, not really at all. But and others me though, I just feel like that's a bit of an issue here. I feel like you could at least do him a bit more. I'm actually for a whole lot from for this character, but for the officer, I do kind of wish they could have flushed him out a bit more. I don't know, maybe just me, I guess. Maybe that's just me, I suppose. I guess or whatnot. Yeah, I guess there's not much else I can say really. But anyway, so ultimately, what I can say is that I'll give this episode an overall rating of a 6.8 out of 10. I give this a 6.8 out of 10 for me. So, of course, as always, thanks for watching. See ya. Oh, yeah. Later.